everyone, welcome. My name is Vivian, founder of Vibe with Viv Relationship Coaching, and I help you heal from toxic relationships. That stands for vision, inspiration, believing, empowerment. So if you're going through an unhealthy or toxic relationship, welcome, and I'm so excited you are here today. And I have a special guest today. Her name is Dominique. What we're going to be doing is sharing her story in order to help you or someone that you know heal on your journey. So I'm so excited for Dominique to be here today. I want this to be a safe space for her and for anybody who is watching and listening to be able to glean some support and also see where they can help someone else on their journey as well. So I'm so excited to have on Dominique. There you go. Dominique, welcome.
Hi, Viv. How are you?
I am doing good. How are you?
Well, thank you.
We just did like multiple shoots trying to do this intro, and I think we finally nailed it.
Yeah, what it's like with technology, isn't it?
Exactly. I am so happy to have you on today. For you to be, willing to share your story. And the goal is to kind of help someone else on their journey. In no way do we want this to be triggering for anybody who may be watching this, but to again hold a safe space in our heart and your space in order to you to heal, let go, process, and maybe see yourself in Dominique's story. So Dominique was in an unhealthy and toxic relationship, and she's going to be talking about, what that relationship looked like. What are some of the signs that were in that relationship that indicated it wasn't healthy, and how she was able to process and let go of that relationship. So Dominique, we're just going to get started, and whatever you're comfortable sharing. What was, the beginning stages of that relationship like for you?
So I would say that the beginning stages was very much like a honeymoon stage. The first 1.5 years, he was very kind, very loving, very attentive. He appeared to be a very, very nice gentleman. And for me, that is what mostly attracted me to him because from previous relationship experiences, I did not want to be with someone that treated me badly. But then after 1.5 years, things started to change.
Yeah. So you say that initially was a honeymoon phase. So it sounds like everything was like perfect, everything was beautiful. I've heard a lot of people say that, some of the clients I've worked with say that it just felt like they were their perfect match. And that's kind of sounds like what you're saying.
That's exactly what happened. And I think, you see, when we met, we were also very much young. And this incident, it all happened in South Africa. So that's where I was at the time, which in South Africa, it's a very difficult country to live in.
Mm-hmm.
Very hard. There's a lot of poverty, and you don't really get any sort of support from the government. And so we were both very young, and I was looking to build myself up from scratch because I didn't really have support from family or parents or anything like that. So I guess when we both met, we were both in the same type of space where we were both trying to build ourselves up. And I started noticing that because I started building up and he stayed in one place, he started then becoming quite envious of me. And I think that made him very intimidated and made him kind of react out in a lot of ways.
Yeah. At that time, were you guys living together, or what was the proximity of you guys?
No, so when we first met, I was living with my guardian.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved out of that house when I was very young. So we weren't living together for the first 3.5 years of our relationship. It was only after 3.5 years that he came to move in with me in my property.
Okay. So you're climbing up the ladder, and there's something about women being independent and strong that intimidates certain men who are kind of insecure in themselves. And it's interesting you say that because I'm actually from Cameroon, which is in West Africa.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, I'm
Okay.
from West Africa, Cameroon. So I think that happens in different cultures too, where the man kind of feels intimidated,
Yeah.
whether the woman is doing well in life, has more money, more successful, and then they feel that this woman is now becoming the breadwinner, and it's intimidating to them because they're not to that place. And it seems like it ends up being a power struggle where seems like in the man's mind, in order for them to maintain their power, what they would say is to now become mean and ugly towards the woman as a way to kind of say, I am above you, and this is where you're at.
Mhm.
What did that look like for you in your situation?
So how that looked like was, so for example, like I say, there's a lot of poverty in South Africa. So I started working from a very, very young age. And, I even had to work to help finance my education because my guardian couldn't even afford it on her own. So that's why I started working very, very young. Whereas his family went through a bit of poverty. And instead of working, which he was much older at the time when it happened than when it happened to me, instead of working, he would make excuses. So he was around about 21, 22 when I started saying to him, okay, you need to start working now. You need to start, contributing to your own bills, gaining experience and things like that. And at that point, I had been working for years because, like I say, I started working from such a young age. And he would get very angry with me. He would use tactics to manipulate me by saying things like, oh, you think I'm not good enough for you? um, you know, um, you need to then be with someone that is rich, things like that. And then I even taught him how to drive. And I could see even when we were driving and I was the one teaching him, he would get angry with me. Because again, maybe if it's a sexist thing, I'm not sure, but it was like the woman teaching the man how to drive. And then obviously as time started going, like I say, I was climbing the ladders and so was all of his friends and everyone else around him and his siblings as well. And he would get aggressive and he would be like, I grew up in poverty and making excuses and everyone else is ahead of me. None of you care for me. No one believes in me, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And this would really confuse me because I would say to him, I don't understand. Like, I'm here. I believe in you, sorry. I'm supportive of you and I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to give you what was never there for me. So if I can do it with absolutely no support whatsoever, and as a female, it's also a lot harder as well, then I don't really understand why aren't you, you know? Why are you making excuses? Why are you comparing yourself to me or your friends or anyone else? You need to grow and develop for yourself, and you need to use the support that you have from not just from myself, but from his mother as well.
Mm-hmm.
But he would get very angry at that.
So how were you feeling during those times? What was your thoughts?
I would get very frustrated and confused. I
Yeah.
think, to be honest with you, at the time, I didn't really realize what was happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that I was in a toxic relationship or that I was being manipulated or gaslighted.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought to myself, my gosh, he's been through such a hard time. He just doesn't know how to deal with it. I need to be more patient. I need to be there for him. And then I think a lot of the time as well, his mother was also great at gaslighting me, because she would be like, oh, you need to understand, he didn't have a fatherly figure. You need to have patience for him. You know, you are the type of woman that's going to make him into the man that he needs to be. Things like that. And
Yeah.
at the time, I didn't realize, but now, obviously, when I'm out of it, I realized that those were tactics, because she was supporting, obviously, the way her son was, and it was maybe getting a bit of a burden to her. So she tried to keep me in, so that I could obviously be there to continue supporting him, when in fact his actions never changed and he never wanted to develop himself.
Right. And you said something very key there, right? We don't know those are tactics until we get out of that relationship, or, you know, someone educates us about it. And that's why I say emotional abuse is so subtle, because you don't know when it's happening. So just even something as simple as the person questioning you that, well, why don't you be patient with me, right? You with someone who's richer, that makes you question whether, well, do I deserve someone who is better? And then it makes you think, no, I've been with him for a long time, let me just wait it out.
Yes, that's exactly what I thought.
Yeah. And it's kind of a way to change your reality in a very subtle way, make you have a little bit of doubt. And that's exactly what gaslighting is.
Questioning your own sanity, your own reality.
Exactly. So it sounds like there was some emotional abuse, some gaslighting. Any physical? Did it escalate to physical, or was it more of the emotional, verbal things?
It was a lot more emotional and verbal. There were 2 encounters, again, that I didn't quite understand at the time. And then only looking back did I realize how bad it was. So, for example, he would start doing things where, and this only started happening in like the second year of being with him, he would start disappearing. And when he would disappear, it would be for 15 hours or more. And obviously that would upset me, because again, this is in South Africa. It's an extremely dangerous country. So I would sit there, you know, ripping myself apart, thinking, oh my God, is he dead? Has he been hijacked? Has he been kidnapped? You know, because those are the things that happen on a daily basis in South Africa. And so when he would disappear and switch his phone off and then switch it back on, and I would obviously confront him and say, where have you been for 15 hours? Or sometimes it would even be 24 hours. And say to him, like, you know, that's not okay. You need to communicate with me. He would get angry, and he would tell me that I was controlling or obsessive, and that I didn't want him to have friends. And then there was one night when obviously he was doing this again. And then when we got home, I said to him, you know, I can't deal with it, because it's making me, you know, so stressed out. Now, again, you know, when you show your emotions to a narcissist, or you confront them of what they're doing to you and how it makes you feel, they get angry. So he got angry and he said, okay, well, why don't you just hit me? And obviously that stunned me. And I thought, well, that's not my point, you know? And again, trying to confuse me. And I said, no, I'm not going to hit you. So he slightly pushed me. And I think I don't react very well if someone physically touches me. So I did push him back, and I pushed him very hard, that he went obviously flying across the room. So that was like the only time. And then I think the second time really was when he was a very abusive to one of his siblings. And I tried to obviously stand up for the sibling. during this encounter and said that this is not okay. And when I tried to stand up, he pushed me against the wall. So those were the only two physical ones.
Yeah.
But most of the time it was emotional and completely mental. A lot of mental. Yeah.
And the reason why I ask is because a lot of abuse starts subtle, right? Emotional. It's hard to see, so we kind of deal with it for a while, trying to understand it. Psychologically, we don't sometimes see it until we're out of it. And we tend to see physical abuse a little bit more because we can see all the bruises or the push, we can feel those shoves. And I say that no one of them is less, significant than the other. Just because we can see one and not see the other, the impact is absolutely the same. And the thing is that it escalates. If it starts with emotional, it tends to go to psychological, tends to go to spiritual if you have a spiritual background, and then it can also lead to physical. So it's a subtle progression, and that if you stay in that relationship longer, that's what tends to happen. Go ahead.
No, it's so interesting when you said spiritual, because there's also a lot of abuse that he used spiritually.
Yes. I say that specifically because of the African background. Very familiar with that. And one of my biggest pet peeves is just about how the woman should be submissive. I see that one being used very, very often. A lot of those are being constructed to kind of benefit the man and to kind of propel the cycle of abuse. In what aspect did you see that play out for you?
So spiritually, I've really been a religious person, exactly for what you're saying, because obviously growing up in South Africa and coming from, so I'm actually not South African by blood per se, but I grew up there. Okay. But in my culture, as well as in South Africa, religion and spirituality is a huge thing. And why I was not religious is because I grew up seeing a lot of people using religion to oppress others, manipulate them, and abuse them, and gaslight them, because, they use it to brainwash you. So when I met him, he was obviously a Christian and I was not. And I started trying to open myself up to Christianity for him. And then I started, going to church with him and try to believe in what he believed in. And how he would use that is in times when, like I say, he would not want to better himself. He would then go put up statuses and say things like, God is the only one that will love me in my darkest. Other people will not. God will forgive me for all my sins. He would try and use God to justify his actions.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest way I saw it, and this is obviously much later into the relationship, was when I found out that he was obviously cheating on me with multiple people. And I was now devastated from this. I was devastated from the deceit and from the betrayal. He would say to me that, God will forgive him for his actions because they were mistakes. But then later, he would actually admit that, they weren't mistakes. And how I caught him out was because he would say that when he was cheating, he felt absolutely no guilt whatsoever, because if any form of guilt would try to slip in, he would obviously nip it in the bud. And if I entered his mind while he was in the act of cheating, he would remove me. So therefore, it was not mistakes because you are deliberately making this choice every single time, aren't you? And you're repeating the action. And then would say to me that, you know, God will find a way of punishing him, and that he can do these things because he'll be forgiven. And then he even went to the point of going to baptize himself and sending me a video of him getting baptized, as in to say he's been reborn from his sins, and you know, he is a changed man, which at the time, under that being baptized, I believed it.
Yeah.
I did. I truly believed it.
And you're not alone. You're not alone.
I believed it. And you know, he was then seeing a counselor in the church and saying to me, you know, a lot of the reason that he cheated as well was because of porn addiction. And so I started believing, okay, he's been baptized now. He's seeing a counselor in the church because the reason he's cheated on me is due to porn. And, you know, therefore he is a good person. You know, I believe him. Only to then cheat again.
Yeah. And right, it's painful because the idea that they feed you that they have changed, we tend to believe that. We hold on to that hope, thinking that they have actually changed, and then the cycle repeats. And I was actually going to say that when you said he would leave for like up to 24 hours, immediately my mind went to, I'm sure he was probably cheating. And they tend to do that when they're not controlling you the way they used to. They don't have that hand over you. They will go and try and start finding a new supply or a new source where they can get that baby in from.
Exactly.
Yeah.